Hi, Matt McAleer with Cumberland Advisors, Director of Equity Strategies, discussing what we saw this week. Let's follow up on last week's call where we saw extreme readings in momentum to the downside. As discussed, we put a little money to work, took ourselves from 18 down to 5% in cash midweek last week. Off those readings, we did get our bounce throughout this week. We committed some more cash, bought a little more energy today in some of the weakness. We're down to about 2 or 3% in our equity accounts. International, nice to see that bounce. As we've been discussing for the last 3 or 4 weeks, very difficult for the U.S. markets to go anywhere off these lows internationally. So whether you want to attribute that to some talk out of the White House or just severe oversold readings in Asia, we did get that bounce. So now we're going to learn something. Next week, 10 days out, 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, very important to see if this market is just bouncing off of oversold readings or trying to put together a little bottoming action. Today, Friday, was a positive. Market at one point, the Dow was down about 300 points. Found some support there, finished with some strength. As I mentioned earlier, the one area that is continuing to have trouble is energy. We nibbled on that today. As is always the case in any kind of trading, whether it's commodities, fixed income, equity, we try not to get too high or too low. We have reasonable levels where we want to put cash to work. We have areas where we want to take cash up. So as I mentioned, U.S., we're fully invested or close to. International, until we can see a little bit more follow through, we're still at that 20% range in cash.
Hey Matt, wait, before you cut it off, I want to ask a question for our viewers and you. Do you think the midterms have any effect in the markets after the results are known?
If I knew the results, I don't know if the market would go up or down. David and I attack the markets in two different ways. David's much more fundamental, macro, interest rate driven. I try to look at some of the analytics inside the market. Supply and demand, momentum, relative strength, trend. So in terms of the midterm, really we'd look at a surprise, right? If it ended up with the Republicans remaining with the House majority,
that's not in the market now.
That's not in the market. So we might have a little bullish move off of that, but the market always knows more than we do.
And one more quick question. Trade talk today, on again, off again, on again, off again. Who knows what the trade deal is? If there's some trade deal with China, will the market like it?
Well, part of that was in Asia's big move, so the market will like that. The problem is the White House doesn't know if there'll be a deal, and China doesn't know if there'll be a deal.
That's a good place to end the week.
It's just talk right now.
Thank you.
Everyone have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.